Oh my God, guys. I've just finished watching Benfica, Real Madrid, and Jose Mourinho. You are still the special one. You are still providing moments for us football fans, man. Wow. Jose Mourinho sends his keeper up in the 98th minute, yeah, to score the fourth goal against big Real Madrid. To not only, drag him into the playoff position, but to drag Benfica into the last position available, number 24. And he knocks Marseille out. De Zerbi's Marseille, by the way, knocks them out on goal difference and secures Benfica's position in the playoffs of the next Champions League phase. Wow. I want to break down just a few of the games and, go through the running of the final positions in the Champions League as we head towards the knockout phases, man. But yeah, wow. I'm catching my breath back. That is football heritage, man. Wow, incredible. But let's talk about the final standings now. Arsenal, wow. Arsenal in the Champions League this year have just showed dominance, have showed maturity. Mikel Arteta showed, tactical awareness in games to, beat low block teams, but in also games to, show that they're here, for a good time against Bayern Munich. So Arsenal, 8 games played, 8 wins, top. Arsenal, Bayern Munich, Liverpool. How in the hell have Liverpool, after the season Liverpool and Tottenham, after the season they've had, finished in the top 4 of the final Champions League standings? Wow. Fair dues to Thomas Frank and Tottenham. They've been playing the best football of their season in the Champions League. And you know what? I think it's because, same with Liverpool, I think it's because the pressure is just not there in the Champions League as it is in the Premier League. When you're playing, week in, week out games in the league and you're underperforming, the fans get onto you. The pressure, the stadium starts, you feel it in the stadium for these players. But I think in the Champions League, when they hear that anthem, they can relax a bit and play with no pressure on. And I feel like Tottenham and Liverpool have really benefited from that this season. And, that's why they're sitting in 3rd and 4th position. You got Barcelona, Chelsea, Sporting Lisbon. Wow. Sporting Lisbon 7th and Manchester City 8th. So you've got Arsenal, Tottenham, Chelsea, City, 4 teams in England that have secured the top 8 positions. Now that is a big deal, especially for all the Premier League teams right now. That places them first in the coefficient rankings, I believe. So if the English teams carry on doing well in the Champions League, then we gain that advantage in terms of our number 5th position in the league, in the Premier League. When I say our, it's because I'm a Man United fan. I watch the Premier League. So the Premier League will have an additional spot, meaning the 5th position in the Premier League can also, gain qualification to the Champions League based on the rankings right now because of how well, the Premier League teams have done in the Champions League so far. But Real Madrid dropped to 9th. Sorry, but Real Madrid was sitting in 3rd when the game started. They had the opportunity to play the round of 16 at home, the second leg, the quarterfinal of the second leg at home. And Jose Mourinho has literally slapped Mbappe around his head. Not Mbappe had a good game. Slapped little Arbeloa around his head. Even though I know Mourinho, Arbeloa, Mourinho came out and said, Arbeloa was one of the greatest players. Not the greatest players, but one of the greatest men he coached at Real Madrid. But man, he's done Arbeloa no favors at all. I can see Real Madrid acting very quickly in the next 48 hours to get someone in, because Arbeloa's had an awful start to his Madrid managerial career. Then you have Inter Milan, PSG, Newcastle. PSG Newcastle played out a 1-1 draw today. Bit of a dull second half, but I love the first half football from PSG. Juventus, Atletico Madrid, Atalanta, Leverkusen, Dortmund, Olympiacos, Club Brugge, Galatasaray, Monaco, Karabakh from Azerbaijan. Wow. Big shout out to Karabakh. Developing well in European football right now. They're doing very well. Bodo Glimt, who, annihilated Man City last week. went and got a result against Atletico Madrid today as well. Incredible what they're doing over there at Bodo Glimt. And Benfica in the number 24th position, man. Wow. Champions League, I'm not going to lie, it can get a bit, this new league phase can get a bit boring when you're watching, for example, you watch Liverpool, Real Madrid at the first few games of the Champions League phase this year, and I can't really remember it. You can't really remember these games because they're kind of meaningless. In the whole scheme of things, when you compare them to, the big clashes between Liverpool and Real Madrid in the Champions League, in the quarterfinals, semi-finals, in finals over recent years. So they are kind of meaningless, but when you have those games, it's still, it brings viewerships, and I understand this Champions League phase, this layout of games now we have, and it made for an exciting end to the Champions League group phase. So that's your final 24. Obviously, the first 8 go through, and I think those teams, I think we may have some early exits by maybe Tottenham, Sporting Lisbon, and I think Tottenham, Sporting Lisbon may be Chelsea, Liam Rosenior, even though, wow, his result today against Napoli was incredible, by the way. Well, I want to speak about that as well, just quickly. Liam Rosenior, after all the the criticism he's had from Chelsea fans, from football fans, they laughed at him I laughed at him, man. This guy came out and said, I think he said, manage. You break it down and it's man. What are you on about, bro? But what you done today? What you done today, Mr. Liam Rosenior? You went to the Diego Maradona Stadium, and you not only played amazing football, but you really, had a presence on the touchline. When I was watching some of them goals back, he's always grabbing, that coach that took interim charge against City at the Etihad. He's always grabbing him, always speaking to him, always vocal to his players. I've noticed that about Liam Rosenior, and I gotta give a big shout out to Liam Rosenior. He's doing an incredible job at the moment. I think he's won quite a few of his games. I don't know off the top of my head, but yeah, Liam Rosenior to go there at the Diego Maradona Stadium in Naples and get that result against Antonio Conte's Napoli, against Scott McTominay, one of the best players in world football right now, against Rasmus Højlund, who's starting to score goals at Napoli. He did a tremendous job, and Chelsea, I think maybe a dark horse in this, because a lot of fans, a lot of football fans, a lot of football pundits are writing Liam Rosenior off, and I think he may have a surprise for us in the Champions League. I think Chelsea may go further than people realize, especially finishing 6th in this group phase. But we also had today Man City. Absolutely, they kind of bullied Galatasaray. Goals from Erling Haaland, Shirky. Erling Haaland's goal, by the way. Jeremy Doku. I don't know what Pep Guardiola's, doing to you in training, but this guy is going from a dribbling specialist, but he's also adding the passes that I thought I'd only see Bernardo Silva do in a Manchester City shirt. This pass for Erling Haaland today was when I say what separates professional football players from semi-professional football players, it's always the weight of pass. The weight of pass today from Doku to Haaland was superb. And Haaland dinks it over the keeper. City get their their 5th win of the Champions League. Lost 2, but City get that 8th position, and crucial for them. They don't need to play an additional two games before the knockout stages. I also want to speak about Bayern Munich, who for me are the favourites. And the reason why they're the favourites for me, one, Harry Kane, and I think that is what separates Bayern Munich right now from Arsenal. They have Harry Kane, and Arsenal have Victor Gyökeres. Even though he scored, had a great game today, but I think the level and the experience is completely different. And I think what Kane and Bayern Munich can do this year could be spectacular. So my favourite for the Champions League this season is Bayern Munich. But the main reason is they have Jamal Musiala back. and he is one of the best dribblers in world football. He has the best vision. I've seen in, German football, some of the things he does on the pitch in the Bundesliga is incredible. But I'm just glad that we have Jamal Musiala back, wearing a Bayern Munich shirt. He's a pleasure to watch as a football fan, man, and I'm a big fan of him. They've kind of already wrapped Bundesliga up. I think they're 8 points ahead of Dortmund. So for me, Bayern Munich are my favourites to win the Champions League this season. But you can't write off the big boys, the Real Madrids. Even Manchester City could have something up their sleeve with Pep Guardiola potentially leaving. At the end of the season, he may let his players know, come on, man, win the Champions League in my last season. You never know. But we also obviously need to speak about PSG, the reigning, defending champions of the Champions League. To me, Ousmane Dembele has been a bit of a disappointment this season. They haven't been great in the league. I think they've lost two games now in the league as well. They're only 2 points ahead of Lens in the French league. And today, the second half performance from PSG was awful. The only standout performer in that side, consistent performer for me, is Mr. Vitinha. Vitinha, the one who's going to lead Portugal and Cristiano Ronaldo to World Cup dominance this year. But Vitinha's goal today, wow. And I've been watching a lot of PSG in the Champions League this year. Vitinha is a beautiful football player. He's a box-to-box player as well. And for him to be a box-to-box player and have that, that physical stature, he's very small, very timid, but he gets about and he's very strong, man. But I'm a big fan of Vitinha and PSG. I don't think they win the Champions League this season again, but I think with Vitinha, in that position, I think they may well, reach the semi-finals. But a team that let me down today, guys, was Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid let me down because I believe they had potential to finish in the top 8. I think they missed out. They were on 13 points. They could have been up there, maybe, in 8th or 7th. But they really let me down. Diego Simeone really let me down today. They take the lead with a fantastic header from Solar. But Bodo Glimt, we've seen what they did to Manchester City. But to do that at the Wanda Metropolitano Stadium against Diego Simeone's Atletico Madrid in the Champions League is a tough ask. So Bodo Glimt, man, what the football these guys have played in the last 2 weeks has been brilliant. Today, they didn't have a lot of the ball, but they made chances. They made a lot of chances. I can see it here now. 9 shots, 4 on target. Atletico Madrid, that's tough to do. That's tough to bring to the field when you're playing such a defensive. So when you're playing against such a rigid defensive side. So fair dues to Bodo Glimt, but I'm really disappointed in Atletico Madrid. And I always want Simeone to do well. I'm a big fan of Diego Simeone and the way he plays football. I love the way he reads football, the way he his passion on the pitch. But he really let me down this season, and I was hoping with all of the big boys not really doing well, Real Madrid, Manchester City, Barcelona playing such a high line. I really thought, Atletico Madrid may, with the luck of the draw, may get far in this Champions League. But after that performance, after that result, I don't see them. I don't see them doing well. The final team I wanted to touch on with you guys is none other than where are they? Barcelona. Sorry, Barcelona. Hansi Flick's Barcelona now. I'm a big fan. I'm a big fan of Marcus Rashford. Scores a tremendous goal today. I used to call him, leader of the new gen when he was at Manchester United all them years. The English players adore him, and he'll definitely make the World Cup squad. The way he's playing, coming off the bench, scoring goals, getting assists, Marcus Rashford will definitely make the World Cup squad. But the problem I have with this Barcelona side is they will always concede goals. And in the Champions League, we saw it last year against Inter Milan, where they look superb. I think DeMarco got absolutely bullied by Lamine Yamal last season in that final game against Inter Milan, where eventually they ended up getting knocked out because of Hansi Flick's high line. And I just don't think he's got the, I don't think he's got a great sweeper keeper in goal, and I don't think he's got great, I don't think they're quite, his centre backs are pretty fast. But to play such a high line, I know it's against Copenhagen, but they played against PSG in the Champions League this year. They no matter what Hansi Flick, he's very, this is my system, this is how we play. And I respect it, but I just don't think they go to a Champions League final this year. I hope they do, because of one guy, Marcus Rashford. I love the guy. I hope he gets a Champions League trophy this season. But I personally think if Barcelona want to win the Champions League, Hansi Flick needs to take, some notes out of the Jose Mourinho book. When Mourinho won the Champions League, a few times, he always had, attacking players. But he always had a philosophy of being rigid in your defensive system. And I just don't think Barcelona can come out of that high line that they do right now. So for me, my favourites, guys, Bayern Munich to win the Champions League. But what an end to the league phase today, with Benfica doing the unthinkable and scoring that fourth goal with Turbin, the goalkeeper, and Mourinho saying, "Yo, get your ass up there in the 98th minute." And then you know what we see from Mourinho? What I love to see when Mourinho celebrates and the passion you see. He grabbed the ball, boy, like it was his son. Oh, I love it, man. Mourinho, we love you. But and personally, Benfica, please win the Champions League. Mourinho, please win the Champions League. You are football heritage. Save football and do the unthinkable with Benfica. But my favourites, Bayern Munich. I think my dark horse in terms of who I think will go really far in this competition is Chelsea. And then, I think the team I really hated watching today was Atletico Madrid. Diego Simeone, get your finger out your arse, man. Your team needs a Champions League. Your legacy deserves a Champions League. But anyway, guys, let me know what you think. Give me your, your winners, your dark horse, who you didn't like in the Champions League so far this season. But yeah, nearly at 100 subscribers. Please like, comment, subscribe, do all of that good stuff, man. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care.